Welcome back, beautiful people. Today's story is equal parts drama and devotion, and trust us, you'll be hooked from the very first line. Asterisk from devastating wedding scandal to unexpected romance. Watch Sarah's incredible journey from abandoned bride to finding her true soulmate in the most shocking way possible. Asterisk, let's see how a story began known no one ever imagined. Asterisk, the silence hit first. Sarah Mitchell felt the weight of 300 pairs of eyes boring into her soul as the orchestra's violins died mid-note. The Grand Regency Hotel's crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across her white silk gown, each reflection a tiny knife cutting through her composure. She stood frozen at the altar, her bouquet of white roses trembling in her manicured hands. "Thomas," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the cavernous ballroom. Her fiancé stepped back, his face pale beneath his perfectly styled hair. The son of Dallas's most prominent senator looked nothing like the man who had proposed to her on a moonlit beach 2 years ago. This Thomas was cold, distant, his eyes avoiding hers as if she carried some contagious shame. "I can't do this," he said, his words cutting through the wedding hall like shattered glass. "I won't marry you, Sarah. I've changed my mind." The gasps from the crowd created a wave of sound that crashed over her. Camera flashes erupted from the press section, each burst of light stealing another piece of her dignity. Her mother's horrified cry pierced through the noise, followed by the frantic whispers of guests who had traveled from across the country to witness what was supposed to be Dallas's wedding of the year. Sarah's best friend Emma rushed forward, her maid of honor dress a blur of lavender silk. "Sarah, come on. Let's get you out of here." Sarah couldn't move. She watched Thomas turn his back on her, watched him walk down the aisle she had dreamed of floating down as his wife. Interior design business had consumed months of her life, planning every detail of this moment. The hand-selected roses, the imported Italian marble backdrop, the golden lighting that was supposed to make her glow like a princess. Instead, she felt like a ghost. "Move, Sarah." Emma grabbed her arm, but Sarah pulled away. "Don't touch me." The words came out sharper than she intended. Emma's face crumpled, revealing something Sarah had been too blind to see. Guilt, secret knowledge, the look of someone who had known this was coming. The realization hit harder than Thomas's rejection. Her best friend had known, and everyone known except her. Sarah lifted her chin, gathering the tattered remains of her pride. She wouldn't run. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. Not here. Not in front of the cameras that were already broadcasting her humiliation to the world. With deliberate steps, she walked through the emergency exit, her train trailing behind her like the ghost of every dream she'd ever had. The Dallas heat slammed into her the moment she stepped outside, but she welcomed it. Anything was better than the suffocating pity inside that ballroom. A taxi idled near the hotel's service entrance. Sarah climbed in, not caring that her $1,000 gown caught in the door. "Where to, lady?" the driver asked, his eyes finding hers in the rearview mirror. "The train station," she said, "and step on it." As the taxi pulled away from the Grand Regency, Sarah caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window. Was smudged, her veil askew, but her eyes held something new, something that scared and thrilled her in equal measure. Determination. By the time she reached Dallas Union Station, the story had already hit the internet. Her phone buzzed with notifications she refused to read, text messages from numbers she didn't recognize, emails from reporters wanting statements. The modern world's hunger for scandal had found its newest feast, and she was the main course. Sarah bought a ticket on the next train heading anywhere but here. She didn't care about the destination. She just needed to disappear before the full weight of what had happened crushed her completely. The midnight train to Wyoming was nearly empty. Sarah found a window seat and pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching Dallas's glittering skyline fade into darkness. Somewhere in that city, Thomas was probably explaining himself to his father's political advisors. Emma was likely fielding calls from mutual friends. Her mother was undoubtedly planning damage control. But Sarah was done being managed, done being the perfect daughter, the perfect fiancée, the perfect victim. As the train carried her toward an uncertain future, she made herself a promise. Whatever came next, she would face it on her own terms. No more playing it safe. No more choosing the expected path. The woman who had walked down that aisle today was gone. What emerged from the ashes would be entirely her choice. The Wyoming train station was nothing more than a weathered platform and a tin roof that rattled in the mountain wind. Sarah stepped off the train into the pre-dawn darkness, her wedding dress now wrinkled and stained with coffee from the journey. The few other passengers disappeared quickly into waiting cars, leaving her alone under a flickering streetlight. She sat on a wooden bench, kicked off her designer heels, and looked up at a sky full of stars she had never seen from Dallas. The silence was different here, not empty, but full of possibility. For the first time in 12 hours, she felt like she could breathe. Her phone had died somewhere outside Amarillo, which felt like a mercy. No more notifications. No more reminders of the life she'd left behind. Just her, a small suitcase, and whatever came next. The sound of an engine broke the mountain stillness. Headlights swept across the platform as a black SUV pulled up, its tinted windows reflecting the streetlight. Sarah tensed, every instinct, screaming danger. This was exactly the kind of situation her mother had warned her about. Isolated place, vulnerable woman, stranger in the night, but she was too tired to run. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the confident stride of someone accustomed to getting what he wanted. In the dim light, she could make out dark hair, sharp features, and expensive clothes that seemed out of place in this rugged landscape. "Sarah Mitchell," he said, and her blood ran cold, his asking. She stood, gripping her suitcase handle like a weapon. "Jack Morrison." I stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could see his eyes were the color of strong coffee. I saw the news coverage. Quite a performance back in Dallas. Heat flashed through her cheeks. "If you're here to gawk at the abandoned bride, you're wasting your time. I'm here because I have a proposition." Jack pulled out his phone, scrolled briefly, then showed her the screen. The headline made her stomach turn. Political scandal. Senator's son leaves bride at altar. Below it was a photo of her frozen at the altar, bouquet in hand, looking exactly like the pitiful victim the media wanted her to be. "I don't need your pity," Sarah snapped. "Good, because I'm not offering any." Jack pocketed the phone. "I need a wife. You need a place to disappear. We can help each other." The audacity of it left her speechless for a moment. Then anger kicked in, hot and clean. "You think I'm so desperate that I'd marry a complete stranger? Think you're smart enough to recognize an opportunity?" His voice remained level, unbothered by her fury. "It's a business arrangement. 6 months, completely legal, with a contract that protects both of us. You get privacy, financial security, and time to rebuild your life. I get what I need to resolve a legal matter." Sarah laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the empty platform. "This is insane. You're insane." "Baby, but you're here, aren't you? In the middle of nowhere, with nowhere to go?" Jack gestured to her wedding dress, her bare feet, her obvious displacement. "Dallas isn't home anymore. The media won't forget this story for months. Every job interview, every new relationship, every time you try to start over, someone will remember you as the woman who got left at the altar." Each word hit like a physical blow because they were true. Sarah had already seen the comments on social media before her phone died. The jokes, the speculation, the cruel memes. Thomas's rejection had branded her with a scarlet letter she'd carry forever. "What kind of legal matter?" she asked, hating herself for the question. "My grandfather left the family ranch to me with a condition. I have to be married to inherit it. The will was challenged, and the court gave me 6 months to comply or lose everything." Jack's jaw tightened. 3 generations of my family have worked that land. I won't lose it to a legal technicality. Let's get married for real. "I tried that once. It didn't end well." Something dark flickered across his features. "I prefer business arrangements now. It's cleaner, more honest." Sarah studied his face, looking for deception or hidden motives.
"Aga."
But Jack Morrison seemed exactly what he claimed to be, a man with a problem who'd found a practical solution. It should have been reassuring. Instead, it made her feel hollow. "The ranch," she said slowly. "Where is it?" "About 40 miles from here." 10,000 acres in the Medicine Bow Mountains. Completely private. No reporters, no cameras, no one who gives a damn about Dallas politics or wedding scandals. The offer was tempting in a way that frightened her. Disappear completely. Become someone else. Let Sarah Mitchell, the abandoned bride, fade into internet history while she figured out who she really was underneath all the expectations and disappointments. "I want to see the contract first," she said. Jack's smile was brief but genuine. "I have it in the car, along with my lawyer's number, references, and anything else you need to verify. I'm not a serial killer." "How do I know you're not lying about all of this?" "You don't. But what's your alternative?" "Go back to Dallas and face the music. Start over somewhere else with nothing but a scandal following you." Jack shrugged. "Is the only good option." Sarah looked around the empty platform, at the mountains silhouetted against the star-filled sky, at this stranger who offered her exactly what she needed in the strangest possible package. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was reckless, dangerous, insane. But rationality had gotten her left at the altar in front of 300 people? "Show me the contract," she said. Jack nodded toward the SUV. "It's going to be a long night, Mrs. Morrison." The title sent an unexpected shiver through her. Not fear, exactly. Something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. Jack's temporary office occupied the second floor of a brick building in the nearby town of Medicine Bow. The space was sparse but efficient. It's dominated by a large desk and walls lined with legal documents and surveyor maps. Sarah sat across from Jack's lawyer, Margaret Chen, reading through the marriage contract with the same attention she'd once given to architectural blueprints. The terms were surprisingly fair. 6 months of marriage in name only. Sarah would receive a lump sum payment of $50,000 at the end of the contract, plus housing and living expenses during their arrangement. In exchange, she would appear at any public events necessary to maintain the legitimacy of their marriage and keep their arrangement confidential. "This clause about public appearances," Sarah said, tapping the page. "Define necessary?" Margaret leaned forward. "Town events, the occasional dinner with Jack's business associates. Nothing elaborate. You'd be playing the role of a newlywed wife who prefers privacy." "How convenient." Sarah looked at Jack, who was studying ranch financial reports with intense focus. He'd changed into jeans and a flannel shirt, looking more like a cowboy then. The polished businessman who'd found her at the train station. "What aren't you telling me about this inheritance situation?" Jack glanced up. "My cousin Derek believes he has a better claim to the ranch. He's been trying to prove my grandfather wasn't mentally competent when he wrote the will." "Was he?" "Sharp as a tack until the day he died. But Derek has money and lawyers, and he's been spreading rumors about my grandfather's mental state to anyone who'll listen." Jack's voice carried an edge of barely controlled anger. "The marriage requirement was my grandfather's way of ensuring the ranch stayed with someone committed to family and tradition. Derek's planning to sell the land to developers the moment he gets control." Sarah set down the contract. "So this isn't just about you inheriting property. You're trying to save your family's legacy. 10,000 acres of unspoiled mountain land, 3 generations of sustainable ranching practices. Derek would turn it into condos and strip malls within a year." Jack's hands clenched into fists. "I won't let that happen." The passion in his voice surprised her. This wasn't just business for him. It was personal, emotional, the kind of fight that consumed people completely. Sarah recognized the feeling, because she'd felt it too, pouring everything into her interior design business, into her relationship with Thomas, into creating the perfect life that had crumbled in a single moment. "The no emotional involvement clause," she said, returning to the contract. "That's non-negotiable?" "Completely." Jack's tone was flat, final. "This is a business arrangement, nothing more." Margaret cleared her throat. "There is one more thing. Jack, you should tell her about the ranch house." Jack shot his lawyer a warning look. "It's not relevant." "If she's going to be living there for 6 months, it's relevant." Margaret turned to Sarah. "The main house was damaged in a fire last year. Jack's been living in the foreman's cabin while he rebuilds." "How damaged?" Sarah asked. The structure is sound, but the interior is gutted, Jack admitted reluctantly. I've been focused on the legal battle, not the renovations. Sarah felt something stir inside her, a familiar creative hunger she hadn't experienced since her world fell apart. You need an interior designer, I need a wife. The house can wait. What if I could be both? The words came out before she could stop them. Jack stared at her, and Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks. I mean professionally. Could oversee the renovation as part of our arrangement? It would give me something productive to do, and you'd get your house back. That's not part of the contract. It could be. Sarah grabbed a pen and added a handwritten clause to the bottom of the document. Sarah Morrison will serve as interior design consultant for the ranch house renovation, with creative control over all design decisions and a budget to be determined by mutual agreement. Jack read the addition, his expression unreadable. You want creative control? Complete creative control. Your only input is the budget. Sarah met his gaze steadily. Take it or leave it. A slow smile spread across Jack's face, the first genuinely warm expression she'd seen from him. You drive a hard bargain, Mrs. Morrison. I'm just getting started, Mr. Morrison. Margaret witnessed their signatures, made copies of the document, and shook both their hands. Congratulations. You're now legally married in the state of Wyoming. The words should have felt momentous, but they didn't. Sarah felt strangely empty, as if she were watching someone else's life unfold from a distance. 24 hours ago, she'd been preparing to marry the man she loved. Now she was bound by contract to a stranger whose last name she shared, but whose motivations remained largely mysterious. What happens now? She asked. Jack checked his watch. Now we go home. The ranch is about an hour drive and you look exhausted. He was right. The adrenaline that had carried her through the day was fading, leaving behind bone-deep weariness. Sarah gathered her small suitcase and followed Jack down to the SUV, trying to process the magnitude of what she'd just done. The mountain roads were narrow and winding, cutting through dense forests of pine and aspen. Jack drove with easy confidence, his hands relaxed on the steering wheel. Classical music played softly from the radio, a stark contrast to the silence between them. Can I ask you something? Sarah said as they climbed higher into the mountains. Shoot, why me? You could have found any number of women willing to marry you for money. Why track down a stranger at a train station? Jack was quiet for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke without taking his eyes off. The road. Because you understand what it's like to have everything you planned for disappear in a single moment. Because you're angry enough to take risks, but smart enough to negotiate terms. And because you don't want anything from me except what we've agreed to. His honesty caught her off guard. Sarah had expected a practical answer, not this glimpse into his reasoning that felt almost personal. What happened? She asked quietly. You mentioned trying marriage once before? Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Her name was Rebecca. We were engaged for 8 months. She left 3 days before the wedding for my business partner, taking half my clients and most of my savings account with her. I'm sorry. Don't be. She did me a favor. Showed me that emotional attachments are just vulnerabilities waiting to be exploited. Jack glanced at her briefly. Business arrangements are cleaner. No one gets hurt when expectations are clearly defined. Nodded, understanding more than she wanted to admit. The pain in his voice was carefully controlled, but unmistakable. Jack Morrison was as damaged as she was, just better at hiding it. Ahead, lights appeared through the trees. The ranch house sat in a clearing surrounded by towering pines, its windows glowing warmly against the darkness. Even in the dim light, Sarah could see the fire damage. One wing of the house was covered in tarps and scaffolding, and the scent of charred wood still lingered in the mountain air. Welcome home, Jack said, parking near a smaller cabin about 100 yards from the main house. Sarah looked at the damaged building, at the vast expanse of dark mountains beyond. At this strange new world she'd stumbled into. Somewhere in Dallas, people were probably still talking about her humiliation. Here, she was Mrs. Morrison, a woman, with a job to do and 6 months to figure out who she really was underneath all the wreckage. For the first time since Thomas had walked away from their altar, Sarah smiled. 3 months into their arrangement, Sarah had transformed the ranch house from a fire-damaged shell into something that belonged in Architectural Digest. She'd restored the original hardwood floors, installed floor-to-ceiling windows that captured the mountain views, and created spaces that felt both rustic and sophisticated. Working 14-hour days had been a blessing, keeping her mind off everything she'd left behind in Dallas. Jack had been the perfect business partner, it proved. Budgets, without question, stayed out of her way during the renovation, and maintained the polite distance their contract required. They shared meals occasionally, discussed ranch business when necessary, and slept in separate bedrooms, like the civilized strangers they were supposed to be. So why did Sarah find herself watching him from the kitchen window each morning as he worked with the horses, noting the way his shoulders moved beneath his shirt and the gentle way he spoke to the animals? Why did her heart race during their rare moments of accidental contact, like when he'd steadied her on a ladder or handed her tools? The no emotional involvement clause was becoming harder to honor with each passing day. "The master bedroom is finished," she announced over dinner, setting down photos of the completed space. Rich navy walls, a stone fireplace, rustic furniture balanced with modern touches. It looked like a retreat for someone who needed peace after long days of hard work. Jack studied the images without expression. "It's perfect. Thank you. You haven't even seen it in person. I trust your judgment." He pushed back from the table. "I should check on the horses." Sarah watched him go, frustration building in her chest. For 3 months, Jack had treated her like a valued contractor, nothing more. She knew it was what they'd agreed to, but lately the professional distance felt like rejection, especially when she caught him looking at her with something that might have been longing before he quickly looked away. Text from Margaret Chen. "Court hearing moved up to next week.
Ow.
Derek's lawyers found something. Need to discuss." Sarah's stomach dropped. The 6-month deadline wasn't for another 3 months, but if Derek had discovered new evidence there, timeline might have changed dramatically. She found Jack in the barn, brushing down a black mare with methodical strokes. The sight of him in the golden light filtering through the barn doors made her chest tight with feelings she wasn't supposed to have. Margaret texted. She said, "The court hearing got moved up." Jack's hand stilled on the brush. What did Derek find? She didn't say. But if they're pushing for an earlier hearing, it can't be good. Jack finished with the horse and turned to face her. In the intimate space of the barn, with the scent of hay and leather surrounding them, the distance he usually maintained felt fragile. "There's something I didn't tell you," he said quietly, "about the fire that damaged the house." Sarah's pulse quickened. "What about it? It wasn't an accident. Someone poured gasoline around the foundation and lit it." The fire marshal found evidence of arson, but they never caught who did it. Jack's jaw clenched. "I think Derek was trying to destroy the house to make the property less valuable, maybe force me to sell." "That's attempted murder, Jack. You could have been killed." "I wasn't here that night. I was in town dealing with lawyers." His eyes met hers. "Derek knew my schedule. He's been watching the ranch for months, waiting for opportunities." The implications hit her like a physical blow. If he's willing to commit arson, what else might he do? What if he finds out about our arrangement? He won't. We've been careful. Have we? Sarah stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "Because I think we've been lying to ourselves for months." Jack went very still. "Sarah, don't." She reached up and touched his face, feeling the day's stubble rough against her palm. "Don't tell me this is just business when you look at me like that. Don't pretend you don't feel what I feel. We have a contract. Screw the contract." The words came out fierce, desperate. "I've been following other people's rules my entire life. I married you because it was practical and safe and wouldn't hurt anyone. But I'm tired of safe, Jack. I'm tired of protecting myself from feeling anything real." Jack caught her wrist, his thumb stroking across her pulse point. "If we cross this line, there's no going back. Maybe I don't want to go back." The admission hung between them like a bridge. Neither was sure they should cross. Sarah had spent 3 months rebuilding. More than just his house. She'd rebuilt herself, discovered strengths she didn't know she possessed, found peace in the rhythm of ranch life and the vast beauty of the mountains. But most surprisingly, she'd found herself falling for the complicated, guarded man who'd offered her refuge when she needed it most. Jack's control finally cracked. He pulled her against him and kissed her with 3 months of suppressed longing, his hands tangling in her hair. Sarah melted into him, tasting coffee and mountain air and something that felt dangerously like coming home. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This complicates everything," Jack said against her forehead. "Everything was already complicated." Sarah smiled up at him. "At least now we're being honest about it." Jack's phone rang, shattering the moment. Margaret Chen's name flashed on the screen, and Jack answered reluctantly. "What did you find?" he asked, putting the call on speaker. "Derek has a witness," Margaret said without preamble. "Someone claiming they saw your grandfather acting confused and disoriented in his final months. They're testifying that he was mentally incompetent when he wrote the will. It's impossible." "Who's the witness?" "Rebecca Miller." Sarah felt Jack go rigid beside her. His ex-fiancée, the woman who'd destroyed his faith in love and commitment, was now trying to destroy his inheritance too. "She's lying," Jack said, his voice deadly quiet. "Maybe, but she's credible, and she's claiming she spent time with your grandfather when you two were engaged. She says he called her by his dead wife's name, forgot conversations, showed signs of dementia." Margaret's voice was grim. "The court hearing is tomorrow morning. If we can't discredit her testimony, Derek wins everything." Sarah watched Jack's face close off, the man who'd kissed her moments ago disappearing behind walls of cold fury. She understood now why he'd been so insistent about the no emotional involvement clause. Everyone he'd ever trusted had betrayed him eventually. "There has to be something," Sarah said. "Some way to prove she's lying." "Like what?" Jack's voice was bitter. "Rebecca was at the ranch dozens of times when we were engaged. She knew my grandfather well enough to make her lies believable." An idea began forming in Sarah's mind, dangerous and desperate, but possibly their only chance. What if we could get her to confess? If she thinks she's already won, she might be careless enough to admit the truth. How? Sarah took a deep breath. Knowing what she was about to suggest would either save them or destroy any chance they had at something real. "I go see her. Woman to woman. Tell her I'm leaving you because I found out about the inheritance scam. Make her think I want to help Derek because I'm angry at being used." Sarah met Jack's eyes. "She might tell me the truth if she thinks I'm on her side." "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous." "It's our only shot, Jack. Tomorrow morning, we lose everything if we can't prove she's lying." Sarah grabbed his hands. "Trust me." The word hung between them, weighted with everything they'd shared and everything they stood to lose. Jack studied her face for a long moment, and Sarah saw the exact moment he made his choice. "If this goes wrong," he said quietly, "if Derek or Rebecca figures out what you're doing, you could be in real danger. Then we better make sure it doesn't go wrong." Jack pulled her close again, holding her tight against his chest. Sarah could feel his heart beating fast and hard, matching her own. "I love you," she whispered against his shirt, the words spilling out before she could stop them. Jack's arms tightened around her. "Sarah, I know it wasn't supposed to happen. I know it complicates everything. But I needed you to know, in case tomorrow goes badly." Jack pulled back to look at her, his eyes dark with emotion. "It won't go badly. I won't let it." But as Sarah fell asleep in Jack's arms that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would change everything one way or another. And this time, she might not survive the fall. Sarah found Rebecca Miller at an upscale coffee shop in Cheyenne, exactly where Jack's private investigator said she'd be. The woman who destroyed Jack's faith in love was beautiful in a calculated way. It's perfectly styled blonde hair and designer clothes that screamed money. She looked up from her laptop with curiosity when Sarah approached her table. "Rebecca Miller?" Sarah extended her hand. "I'm Sarah Morrison. I think we need to talk." Recognition flickered across Rebecca's face. "You're Jack's new wife." "One from the news? The abandoned bride?" "Yes." Sarah sat down without being invited, though I suppose we have something in common now. Do we? Sarah lowered her voice, glancing around the coffee shop as if checking for eavesdroppers. I know what you're doing tomorrow. A testimony about Jack's grandfather, and I want to help. Rebecca's perfectly penciled eyebrows rose. Help how? By telling you everything I know about Jack's financial situation, his relationship with his grandfather, and why this whole marriage is a sham. Sarah leaned forward, channeling every bitter emotion she'd felt during those first dark days after Dallas. He used me, made me think this was about mutual benefit, when really he just needed a body to satisfy the will requirements. That must be difficult for you. Difficult. Try humiliating. Left everything behind for him, and now I find out the whole thing was a lie. Sarah's voice carried genuine pain, because in a way it had been. The contract marriage had been real, even if what grew from it wasn't part of the original plan. He doesn't love me. Never has. I'm just a convenient solution to his legal problem. Rebecca sipped her latte, studying Sarah with calculating eyes. What exactly are you proposing? Information. Details about their relationship that might help your testimony sound more convincing. In exchange, I want assurance that Derek will honor my contract when he takes over the ranch. I've put 3 months of work into that house renovation, and I want to be compensated fairly. You're willing to betray your husband for money? Sarah laughed bitterly. Betrayed me first. Besides, it's not like this is a real marriage. We sleep in separate bedrooms, barely speak except about business. The whole thing has been a business arrangement from day one. For a moment, Sarah thought Rebecca might not take the bait. Then the other woman smiled, and something predatory flickered in her eyes. I like you, Rebecca said. You're practical, like Jack, who always let his emotions cloud his judgment. Is that why you left him? I left him because he was boring? All that earnest dedication to the ranch, to his family legacy, Derek offered me something much more interesting. Rebecca's smile turned cruel. Plus, when Derek sells that land to developers, we'll make millions. Jack's grandfather's dream of preserving 10,000 acres of unspoiled wilderness will become luxury condos and golf courses. Sarah felt sick, but she kept her expression neutral. So the testimony tomorrow is fabricated? Completely. But it doesn't matter. Jack's grandfather was a stubborn old man who refused to modernize. The ranch has been losing money for years. Derek will turn it into something profitable. Rebecca leaned back in her chair, confident now. Jack never could see the bigger picture. He's too sentimental. What about the fire? The one that damaged the house? Rebecca's smile widened. What about it? Derek had nothing to do with that, right? Because arson is a serious crime. Derek is very careful about legal liability. He would never get his hands dirty with something like arson. Rebecca's tone was conversational, but her eyes held a warning, though accidents do happen on remote properties, gas leaks, electrical problems, careless smoking. The threat was clear. Sarah felt ice water in her veins, but she forced herself to nod as if she understood perfectly. I should go, Sarah said, standing. The hearing is early tomorrow, and I have packing to do. Smart girl. Jack picked well, even if he doesn't appreciate what he has. Sarah walked out of the coffee shop on unsteady legs, praying the recording. Device hidden in her purse had captured every damning word. 2 blocks away, Jack waited in his truck, his face tense with worry. Did you get it? He asked as she climbed in. Sarah played back the recording, watching Jack's expression darken as Rebecca's voice filled the truck. When the recording ended, Jack was gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. She threatened you, he said quietly. She threatened the ranch. There's a difference. Not to me, there isn't. Jack looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Sarah, what we talked about last night? About loving each other? This changes everything. Because now we know Derek and Rebecca are willing to commit crimes to get what they want? Because now I know how much you're willing to risk for something you believe in. Jack reached over and took her hand. I've been afraid to trust what I feel for you, because everyone I've ever loved has left. But you're not leaving, are you? Sarah's throat tightened with emotion. Not unless you want me to. I don't want you to. Jack brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her palm. I want you to stay forever, not because of a contract or a legal arrangement, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Jack, I love you, Sarah Morrison. I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you turned my broken house into a home. I love that you risked everything today to save something that matters to me. Sarah felt tears spill down her cheeks. I love you too. And not because you saved me from my worst moment, but because you let me save myself. The courthouse the next morning was packed with reporters and curiosity seekers drawn by the scandal. Sarah sat in the gallery watching Derek's lawyers present their case, Rebecca taking the stand with practiced composure. Her testimony was flawless, painting Jack's grandfather as a confused old man who didn't understand his own decisions. When Margaret stood to cross-examine, the courtroom fell silent. Ms. Miller, you testified that you observed signs of mental incompetence in Mr. Morrison's grandfather during your engagement to his grandson. Is that correct? Yes. You're certain these observations are accurate? Absolutely, Margaret smiled. Your Honor, I'd like to play a recording for the court. Derek's lawyers objected, but the judge allowed it. Rebecca's voice filled the courtroom, confessing to fabricating her testimony and threatening the ranch property. The color drained from her face as her own words condemned her. Ms. Miller, Margaret continued calmly, would you like to revise your testimony? The courtroom erupted. Derek's lawyers demanded a recess, but the damage was done. Within an hour, the judge had ruled in Jack's favor, awarding him full ownership of the ranch and referring Rebecca's case to the district attorney for perjury charges. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them with questions. Jack rapped, his arm around Sarah's waist, pulling her close. Mr. Morrison, is it true your marriage was arranged to satisfy the will requirements? One reporter shouted. Jack looked down at Sarah, his eyes warm with love and pride. My marriage started as a business arrangement, he said clearly. But it became something real when I fell in love with the most incredible woman I've ever met. Sarah felt her heart stop. This wasn't part of their plan. He was supposed to maintain the fiction of their romance, not declare his feelings to the world. And Mrs. Morrison, another reporter called, any comment on your whirlwind romance so soon after your Dallas wedding scandal? Sarah thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, desperate, humiliated, running from her own life. Then she looked at Jack, at the man who'd offered her refuge and found love instead. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing, she said. I wouldn't change a single moment of my journey to get here. That evening, they sat on the porch of their restored house, watching the sun set over the mountains. Sarah curled against Jack's side, feeling peace settle over her like a warm blanket. So what happens now? She asked. Our 6-month contract is almost up. Jack pulled a folded paper from his pocket. I have a new contract for you. Sarah took it, expecting another legal document. Instead, she found a hand-drawn sketch of a ring with, "Will you marry me for real?" written underneath in Jack's careful handwriting. She laughed, tears streaming down her face. This is the worst marriage proposal in history. Is that a yes? That's a yes to everything. To staying, to loving you, to building a real life together on this beautiful land. Sarah kissed him, softly. But next time, I want a proper wedding, with friends and family and vows that we write ourselves. Deal. But no reporters. Definitely no reporters. As stars appeared in the darkening sky, Sarah thought about the woman who'd fled Dallas in a wedding dress 6 months ago. That woman had been broken, lost, searching for somewhere to belong. This woman had found her home in the most unexpected place with a man who'd seen her strength when she couldn't see it herself. Sometimes the end of one story was just the beginning of something better. Love you, Mrs. Morrison. Jack whispered against her hair. I love you too, Mr. Morrison. For real this time. The mountains held their promise like a blessing, and Sarah Morrison finally understood what it meant to be exactly where she belonged. *LIKE. If you believe in second chances at love, comment your favorite moment from the story. Subscribe for more incredible romance stories that will make your heart race. The end.